When was the last time you bought a jar of butter chicken or tikka masala from Woolies or Coles, poured it over your brown meat, and ended up staring into a neon orange, gelatinous puddle that tasted more like warm dessert syrup than a proper curry? You probably blamed yourself. You thought you should have simmered it longer, added extra garlic, or picked a different cut of chicken. You did not ruin dinner. You got mugged off by an industrial processing plant that replaced 30 years of culinary heritage with cheap tap water and chemical thickeners. By the time we finish today, you will know precisely how supermarket giants and multinational conglomerates strip the soul out of our Friday night dinners while doubling the price tag. I will show you which beloved household names quietly sold out to global corporate conglomerates, why the golden rule of home cooking no longer protects you, and how one supposedly high-end supermarket own label charges top dollar for a sauce containing barely 6% tomatoes. We will crack open the ingredient panels, lay out the lab findings, and dismantle 8 brands you should leave sitting on the shelf, before revealing 4 exceptional alternatives that deliver authentic, restaurant-grade depth. Stay until the end, because the single most deceptive offender on our list is the exact premium jar millions of well-meaning shoppers reach for when they want to treat their families. To understand how bad things have become, look at what an authentic curry base is meant to be. In any traditional kitchen, whether in North India or your favorite local takeaway, a curry begins with whole spices bloomed in hot oil or ghee, releasing their aromatic essential oils. That gets built on a slow-cooked tarka, mounds of finely diced onions fried down until sweet and deeply caramelized, smashed fresh ginger, garlic, and ripe tomatoes cooked down until the oil visibly splits from the paste. That painstaking reduction is what creates natural thickness, savouriness, and body without needing a single pinch of flour. Now look at how modern food factories make the ambient jars lining Australian supermarket aisles. Slow browning hundreds of kilograms of fresh onions takes time, energy, and costly raw produce. Tap water, by comparison, costs next to nothing. So the factory flips the entire recipe upside down. They make water the primary ingredient, blend in a cheap powder slurry of modified maize starch or xanthan gum to fake the body of reduced onions, and pump in refined white sugar to mimic the natural sweetness of caramelization. It is the food industry equivalent of selling you an engine with plastic pistons and charging you for solid forged steel. When consumer testing organizations and food scientists analyze these formulations, the picture is bleak. Modified starches swell under heat, binding the water into a claggy, shiny gel that coats your tongue and actively suffocates the fragile, volatile compounds of the spices. To keep this watery mixture from spoiling during 18 months on a room-temperature supermarket shelf, manufacturers dump in heavy doses of acidity regulators like citric, lactic, or acetic acid. The result is that sharp, artificial tang that fights against the cumin and coriander, leaving you with a sour, gloopy gravy that ruins whatever fresh ingredients you threw into the pan. Once you recognize the structural con, the whole aisle looks completely different. Let us start the countdown of what you should leave firmly on the shelf. Starting at number 8, we have Cantong. Owned by Mars Food Australia, this brand has sat in local pantries for generations as the ultimate fuss-free convenience. It trades on casual midweek nostalgia, promising a speedy dinner that requires zero culinary thought. Look closely at their butter chicken cooking sauce, and you quickly spot the factory shortcut. Water leads the formulation, followed by tomato paste, vegetable oil, and a substantial payload of thickener 1422, which is modified maize starch, along with sugar sitting uncomfortably high up the running order. The mouthfeel is undeniably slick and gloopy, clinging to your poultry like a translucent, thickened jelly rather than a luxurious dairy emulsion. At roughly $4.50 for a 400-gram jar at Woolworths, you are handing over hard-earned cash for 90% thickened tap water and refined sweetener. A choice review across ambient cooking sauces highlighted how mass-market formulations frequently rely on high sodium and sugar to mask the absence of slow-cooked aromatics. As veteran culinary educator Elizabeth Chong once observed regarding mass-produced cooking sauces, when you replace real aromatic reduction with thickeners and table sugar, you stop making a savory dinner and start making a dessert glaze. Cantong butter chicken is essentially a warm confection pretending to be an authentic curry. Moving to number 7, we find Sharwood's. Distributed globally by Premier Foods, this British heritage label has occupied prime real estate on Coles and Woolworths shelves for decades. It carries the romantic weight of an old-world merchant brand, making Australian shoppers assume they are purchasing refined restaurant heritage. Turn the jar around and inspect the butter chicken cooking sauce. Water and tomatoes are immediately shadowed by refined white sugar, which remarkably sits higher on the panel than the double cream the sauce brags about on the front lid. Then comes modified maize starch, doing the heavy lifting to engineer an artificial, glossy sheen. In a pan, this formula does not reduce down into a rich sauce. It merely tightens into a heavy, claggy paste that leaves a distinct film on the roof of your mouth. At $5.50 a jar, representing nearly $1.40 per 100 grams, it demands a premium price for mass-produced bulk manufacturing. Sydney chef Neil Perry has consistently warned home cooks that store-bought sauces loaded with starches destroy the delicate balance of spices by muting their natural heat and aroma. Sharwood's is coasting on a colonial-era brand font while serving you a lab-stabilized syrup that insults your dinner plate. At number 6 is Passage to India. Manufactured by Passage Foods and distributed widely through IGA, Woolworths and Coles, this range presents itself in upscale foil pouches with imagery evoking traditional regional cooking. The brand positioning screams specialist artisan heritage. Open up their simmer sauce tikka masala pouch, however, and the formulation tells a familiar tale of cost-cutting. The ingredient profile is dominated by water, reconstituted tomato puree, onion and canola oil, backed by thickener 1422 and xanthan gum. When poured into a screaming hot pan, instead of frying and releasing rich toasted spice aromatics, it immediately steams and bubbles into a flat, watery slurry that tastes predominantly of raw citric acid and uncaramelized onion. At $4.80 for a small 375-gram pouch, the cost per serve exceeds well over $1.20. Food technologist Dr. Rosemary Stanton has repeatedly pointed out that processed ambient sauces often employ high acid levels to maintain extended shelf stability, sacrificing flavor complexity in the process. Passage to India gives you all the visual romance of a deli spice market on the outside, while delivering the flat, acidic profile of a budget industrial batch inside. Taking the 5th spot is ALDI Asian Classics. Sold exclusively through ALDI supermarkets for under $2.50 a jar, this budget offering is embraced by bargain hunters trying to beat the brutal cost of living. It makes no grand promises of royal palace recipes, and we respect raw honesty about price point. But you need to recognize the severe nutritional and culinary compromise in that glass jar. Water sits right at the top, followed by minimal tomato paste, a tiny fraction of spices, and heavy doses of modified maize starch and acidity regulator 330. When cooked, it congeals around meat and vegetables into an unnaturally bright, gelatinous orange coating that tastes flat, metallic, and aggressively sweet without any lingering spice bloom. A customer review on Product Review bluntly noted that it tasted like salty tomato soup mixed with cheap baking spices and corn flour. It establishes the baseline for our investigation. This is what cheap water, starch, and industrial coloring taste like when no marketing fluff hides the reality. If you are already itching to check your own pantry to see what is lurking in your cupboards, take a moment to subscribe right now, because the exposures only get rougher from here. At number 4, we have Coles Urban Coffee Culture and standard own-brand Indian cooking sauces. Supermarket house brands have expanded relentlessly, positioned as the clever, thrifty alternative to big-name labels. Look at the Coles tikka masala jar selling for around $3. Water proudly opens the composition, backed by tomato paste, canola oil, modified maize starch, sugar, and artificial colorings to give the illusion of rich tandoori spices. In the skillet, the sauce splits slightly before setting into an unctuous, sticky gel that fails to penetrate the meat, leaving the chicken tasting boiled and the gravy tasting hollow. The Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance has frequently noted how private label products squeeze manufacturing margins to the absolute bone, forcing processors to cut real food ingredients down to the bare legal minimums. You might save $1 compared to the legacy brands, but you are buying a product engineered by supermarket accountants to maximize shelf life and profit margins rather than dinner table satisfaction. Coles' own brand is budget engineering disguised as everyday value. Coming in at number 3 is Patak's. This one cuts deep for anyone who loves cooking, because for decades, Patak's was the undisputed benchmark for home cooks across Australia. Back in the day, cracking open a small glass jar of their concentrated curry paste released an oily, pungent burst of authentic ground coriander, cumin, and fenugreek that formed the foolproof foundation of a magnificent homemade curry. But since the brand was absorbed into global corporate giant Associated British Foods, the formulation has drifted dramatically. Longtime home cooks have flooded online review boards, complaining that modern jars of Patak's Rogan Josh and Madras pastes now arrive swimming in thin vegetable oil, tasting sharp and vinegary, and lacking the deep, earthy spice punch of the original formula. The current label reveals water leading the spice blend, with rapeseed oil, maize flour, salt, and acetic acid aggressively asserting themselves. In the pan, instead of frying down into an aromatic, glossy base, it splutters watery steam and leaves a sour aftertaste that requires aggressive correction with sugar and cream. Melbourne food critic Matt Preston once remarked that when a heritage spice paste loses its aromatic intensity to cheap fillers and vinegar, the entire dish loses its structural spine. Patak's has abandoned its traditional soul in pursuit of multinational factory efficiencies. At number 2 is Continental Recipe Base. Part of the Unilever empire, Continental is an iconic fixture in Australian supermarkets, synonymous with quick family meals. Their Indian curry and butter chicken wet recipe bases promise rich flavour in minutes. But examining the sachet reveals a concoction heavily reliant on water, maltodextrin, thickeners, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, and sugar, with genuine spices relegated to tiny percentage fractions near the bottom. Food Standards Australia-New Zealand guidelines allow extensive use of flavour enhancers and bulking starches, and this product exploits every single allowance. In the pan, it creates a pasty artificial gravy with an overwhelming artificial onion powder aroma and a lingering chemical aftertaste that overpowers fresh meat. A scathing consumer review on an Australian cooking forum summarised it perfectly, stating that it smelled like instant noodle seasoning thickened with wallpaper paste. Continental trades on generations of suburban trust to offload a cheap bag of modified starch and flavour enhancers. Taking the number 1 spot as the most deceptive product on the entire shelf is Woolworths Gold Butter Chicken Sauce. Woolworths created its gold tier to capture affluent shoppers willing to pay top dollar for what is billed as an exceptional restaurant-quality meal experience. Packaged in an elegant jar with bespoke matte labelling, it sits on the shelf demanding nearly $7. The marketing copy promises slow-cooked decadence, rich cream, and authentic spices. But flip that fancy jar around and the reality is staggering. Water is listed right at the beginning, followed by cream, with tomato paste and diced tomatoes providing a shockingly low percentage of the total composition, bulked out with thickener 1422, sugar, and lactic acid. You are paying ultra-premium money for an ingredient profile that mirrors the cheapest budget jars on the bottom shelf. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has repeatedly warned the retail sector about misleading packaging impressions. And while this product complies with technical labelling laws, it completely betrays the culinary promise made by its premium pricing. A home cook on Choice Community remarked that paying $7 for what is essentially water and corn flour in a fancy dress felt like highway robbery. Woolworths Gold Butter Chicken is the ultimate supermarket illusion, charging you a luxury tax for watered-down industrial filler. Right, here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. After pulling apart the supermarket's smoke and mirrors, you might wonder if there is anything left on Australian shelves that has not been ruined by corporate accountants. The answer is yes, but you have to know what to look for and where to spend your money. We have found 4 outstanding options, spanning from everyday supermarket convenience to uncompromising artisanal craftsmanship. Leading our recommendations as the most accessible everyday supermarket upgrade is the Spice Tailor. Founded by cookbook author and television presenter Anjum Anand, this brand reimagined ambient meal kits by rejecting the single jar of pre-mixed sludge. Instead of drowning everything in industrial paste, each pack provides 3 distinct components: a sachet of whole aromatics like black cardamom, cloves, and bay leaves, a concentrated base sauce of slow-cooked onions, ginger, and garlic, and a separate seasoned finishing sauce. When you tear open the packet and drop the whole spices into sizzling oil, your kitchen instantly fills with the authentic fragrance of toasted cumin and cinnamon. You build the layers sequentially over 8 minutes, exactly as a restaurant chef would. The texture coats the back of a spoon with real vegetable reduction chicken rather than rubbery maize starch. Priced at roughly $6.70 at Coles and Woolworths, it works out to approximately $3.30 per serve. While that sits higher than budget jars, the quality jump is immense. The only caveat is that the brand was acquired by food giant Premier Foods, so you should keep a watchful eye on the ingredient panel for future reformulations. For busy weeknights when you want genuine aroma without grinding your own masala, it remains an exceptional supermarket option. Woolworths next is a staple beloved by independent grocers and discerning home cooks across the country, Maharaja's Choice Curry Pastes. Distributed extensively through independent IGAs, Foodworks and Indian grocers nationwide, this heritage range represents uncompromising traditional spice compounding. Unlike westernized retail sources, Maharaja's Choice produces concentrated bases where whole spices are freshly roasted, stone ground, and preserved in natural vegetable oils without water bulking or synthetic thickening agents. Look at their Madras or Rogan Josh paste. You see whole mustard seeds, crushed coriander, deep Kashmiri chili, and pungent turmeric suspended in oil. When dropped into a hot pan, the oil separates cleanly, frying the raw aromatics without that watery hiss of diluted factory pastes. The resulting flavor delivers an authentic earthy punch with genuine lingering heat that transforms a basic kilogram of diced chuck steak into an aromatic feast. Costing around $4.50 for a generous jar that yields 5 to 6 full family meals, the price per use drops to less than 90 cents. Melbourne culinary instructor Kumar Pereira has praised such authentic spice bases for delivering honest heat and uncompromised spice ratios without relying on excess sodium or sugar. It is the perfect choice for home cooks who want total control over their curry base without spending 3 hours roasting whole spices. For those who want pure Australian-made excellence, look no further than Latasha's Kitchen. Crafted in Western Australia by Latasha Menon, this boutique brand has racked up dozens of national and international food awards, including prestigious Royal Agricultural Show medals. The philosophy here is absolute. Small batch production using real, locally sourced ingredients with zero artificial additives. No thickeners, no added water, and no corner cutting. A single jar of Latasha's tikka masala or biryani paste packs up to 40 fresh aromatics, including crushed ginger, fresh garlic, ground turmeric, and slow-braised onions. Sautéing a spoonful in ghee releases a complex, layered perfume that smells like a Michelin-starred kitchen. The flavor is bold, rich, and naturally balanced by caramelized produce rather than refined white sugar. Retailing at around $16 to $18 across high-end grocers like Harris Farm Markets, gourmet butchers, and premium IGAs, the upfront price might seem steep. However, because it is an ultra-concentrated paste rather than a diluted sauce, one jar stretches across several large family curries, keeping the true cost per serve under $2.50. Food critics have routinely lauded Latasha's range as the gold standard of artisan condiments in Australia. If you want profound depth and support local Aussie producers, this is top tier. Straight to the source. Finally, for the ultimate luxury restaurant experience at home, we have Gymkhana Fine Foods. Emerging from the celebrated London restaurant group and available in Australia through select high-end food halls and specialty gourmet retailers, this range brings 2 Michelin star heritage straight to your stovetop. Gymkhana completely rejects modified starches, palm oil, and artificial flavor enhancers. Their butter masala and Rogan Josh sauces use rich dairy cream, real butter, vine-ripened tomatoes, and genuine Kashmiri chilies. The sauce is glossy, velvety, and deeply complex, with the unmistakable smoky tandoor notes and mellow heat of an elite dining room. At $20 to $22 a jar, it is an unapologetic luxury reserved for special occasions. But compared to a $200 Friday night restaurant bill for a family of 4, it delivers a flawless dining room finish for a fraction of the cost. For an anniversary dinner, or when you demand perfection straight from a jar, it justifies every single cent. To make sure you never waste another dollar on thickened factory water, here are 5 essential shopping rules to keep in your back pocket every time you walk down the supermarket aisle. First, check the first 2 ingredients on the back label. If you see water or reconstituted puree listed ahead of whole vegetables, aromatics, or crushed tomatoes, put the jar straight back on the shelf. Second, treat any mention of modified maize starch, thickener 1422, xanthan gum, or maltodextrin as an immediate red flag indicating the manufacturer used chemical binders to fake the body of slow-cooked onions. Third, check the sugar content per 100 grams on the nutritional panel. A savory Indian curry base should never contain more sugar than a standard dessert yogurt. Fourth, prioritize concentrated spice pastes packed in natural vegetable oils over large, sloshing jars of pre-diluted simmer sauce, because you can easily add fresh tomatoes, coconut milk, or stock from your own kitchen at a fraction of the cost. Fifth, look for whole visible spices on the ingredient declaration, such as crushed cardamom pods, mustard seeds, cumin seeds, and whole cinnamon bark, which prove that the maker bloomed authentic aromatics rather than stirring in a generic dust of cheap yellow curry powder. The systemic truth behind modern supermarket aisles is remarkably simple. Multinational corporations rely on our busy lifestyles to sell us ultra-processed convenience at premium price points. They take traditional recipes that required hours of slow braising, engineer out the real produce, replace it with water and industrial binders, and dress up the label with flowery descriptions to make you feel like you are treating your household. Once you shift your mindset from trusting the marketing promises on the front of the packaging to examining the raw truth on the back panel, you instantly take control of your plate and your grocery budget. Thank you so much for investing your valuable time with us today. If you know a friend or family member who still buys mass-market jars of sugary butter chicken every Friday night, share this investigation with them right now so they can see what is actually in their pan. Tell us down in the comments, which of these 8 brands is sitting in your pantry right now, and which supermarket aisle should we investigate next? Make sure to check out our previous deep dive on store-bought pasta sauces to uncover the hidden fillers sitting in your favorite Italian jars. Protect your plate.